Hello, and welcome to today's Augustana Human Library session. The title of today's human book is P.W. Goes to Haiti, and this is the human book's abstract. Cops, coppers, the fuzz, pigs, the donut squad, flick, popo, asphalt cowboys are just a few slang names for police officers. But being a police woman, I'm a special breed and I get my own slang. P.W. I will share my experiences not only as a police officer, but as a PW, as well as being a PW in Haiti for a year.
So I've been a police officer for just about under 15 years now. During my career, I've had the opportunity to work with the Cameras Police Service. Actually, that's where I started my career in 2006. Since then, I worked with the Ottawa Police. I've also worked for the RCMP and the UN, United Nations, on secondment. So I've had a tremendous career so far, and super grateful. I've worked with some amazing people, some amazing organizations. So today I'm going to share some of my experiences, my opinions, my perspectives. It's important that those are mine, okay? They're not of the Cameras Police or the Ottawa Police, and none, they don't belong to the RCMP or the UN either. It's my experiences. I'm super excited to let you know, to talk to you about that. Just give you a bit of a background history on my career, and then we'll lead into my experience in Haiti, which was a highlight of my career, for sure. So I started policing in 2006, and it was in Camrose. I joined the Cameras Police. My experience there was very positive, actually. There was very few women. At the time when I got hired, there was 4 women out of 30 officers. So definitely outnumbered. But the relationship with my colleagues, I definitely felt supported by my colleagues. I'll talk a little bit about how being a female police officer, how I viewed it back then to now. I'll talk about that a little bit over the course of my chat here, but back then I was just very grateful that I got a job. I couldn't believe that they hired me. I was excited, and I just kind of didn't really question a lot. I was just like, oh, I'm just lucky they gave me a chance. But looking back now, there was things like, it was like comments mostly from the public sometimes. Oh, pretty small to be a police officer. Been called a kindergarten cop very many times. Asked questions about, how does your mom feel about her daughter being a police officer? How's your grandmother feel about that? Questions like that I don't think male police officers necessarily got. The other thing too was, I had good sergeants there too, but I had one for a period that super good, but he would always, if I got dispatched to a call, he would always come. And I thought it was a bit weird because he didn't necessarily do that to other of my colleagues. And later it was to find out that, well, he's like, you're like my daughter. I wouldn't want anybody to hurt you or you to get hurt. So I always felt a little bit inferior, like I wasn't strong enough, or people worried a bit more about me. So although with my colleagues, I felt a bit that wasn't really the case. It was just the one sergeant. It was a good sergeant. It was just that I felt that maybe because I was a small female officer, maybe that he was more concerned about me, which was a bit interesting. But that was my experience in Camrose, very positive. In 2010, I came and joined the Ottawa Police Service. My first day at our parade. So the start of shift, the roll call is basically we show up in this parade room and they do a roll call. They give us our section where we're going to work that night. And my new platoon was basically the same number of my previous service. So I show up at Ottawa Police, my platoon, there was 30 police officers around the table, and that's just our downtown shift for that night. And I'm introduced at the first parade. Hello, everybody, welcome our new PW. I was like, PW? You know, PW and Nicolavec, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. Had no idea what PW meant. That's definitely not a term that I had heard before in Camrose. And although I wasn't a rookie, I came to the Auto Police and as a direct entry. So basically, that's an experienced officer, an officer that's worked somewhere else coming in. I didn't have to ride with usually as a rookie, you have to be trained by a coach officer. I did have a coach officer for about 10 shifts, and that was mostly just to get used to the computer system at Auto Police and to get to know the city and how they do things. So that night in the car, I asked my coach officer, I'm like, what's a PW? He's like, oh, it's a policewoman. I'm like, oh, okay. Didn't think much of it at all. You know, I was like, that's interesting. I don't know why I'm just not called a police officer, because that's what I am, but call me a PW, so okay. And over the course of the months, and I realized that female police officers are always called PWs until one, they prove themselves, then they become a police officer. Or they remain if you know, if a female police officer proved herself, so she's a police officer now, but she makes a mistake or something like that, then she becomes a PW again, which is kind of interesting because as a male police officer, whether you screw up or not, you're still a police officer. So that was a little bit interesting. So I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but I was like, well, it is what it is. I didn't question it very much, but that's where the PW comes. And now I've embraced it that I'm a PW specialist because I'm going to make the PW, you know, kind of leave a mark on it. So now fast forward to the other thing too, as a PW. So I came as an experienced officer. I had just a little over 4 years at the Camrose Police Service, which was tremendous amount of experience because everything I did at the Camrose Police Service, I did all my own investigations. That was the bonus of working in a small service, is when I got dispatched a call, I take the whole, it's my file. I take ownership. I'm the lead investigator, and I see it through from the start, from the moment that I answered the radio to completing the file for court and going to court. In Ottawa, bigger service, it's different, where the officer just takes the initial report, and it goes to a specialty section. So there's sections for break and enters, there's section for robberies, sexual assault, child abuse, domestic violence. So they're all special sections. So so basically you go to a call, you take the initial report and you send it off, and that other section takes care of it. So really, you just do the initial report, like that's it, right? So even though I had the ability already to carry a file on my own, and there's certain files, like basic files, you're allowed to anyway, even though there's a special section. So for me, I knew how to do my investigation, so I took them on. I was like, well, I know how to do this. This is really easy. And the most important part of any file is the initial report, which I'm taking anyway. So I took ownership of that. So even though I was I had all these skills, I was still treated kind of like as a rookie. And at first I was like, okay, maybe it's because I come from another service, and that's interesting. I realized that there was other police officers that were also direct entries. They had about the same amount of years as me from a previous service and had transferred to Ottawa as well. And they were not treated like a rookie. And they did not have to go through some of the stuff I had to go through. And I just questioned that. And actually, I didn't initially question it. I questioned it later on when some other women were going through the same thing as me. I was like, well, they had the experience, so let's not treat them like rookies. They're experienced and they're valuable. So, you know, and these are things that if I would have wrote this book even 7 years ago, my perspective about the term PW would have been very different than now. Now I think being having a bit of experience also through my career, I've moved to different sections and I've moved up the ladder a little bit in career development. I feel very different and I feel a bit stronger and see that and not scared to say, hey, I'm valuable. And I think sometimes, for me anyway, as a policewoman, I often felt, well, I was the token woman. You know, and I kind of acted that way a bit because I was like, I was so grateful to be in this career as a woman, and a lot of the comments, even from, you know, society, my family, even like, my family actually was pretty supportive, but, you know, just comments of like, are you sure you want to be a police officer? Like, it's gonna be pretty tough. I realized that I had kind of put myself in that, okay, I'm the token woman, I'm really lucky, they just need to, you know, diversify, so that's why I'm in. And now I feel very different. I'm in this position because I have the skills and the abilities and the knowledge and very capable. So, you know, I've kind of become a little cockier about it, and I feel that I have the right because I work with wonderful police officers, male police officers that are very cocky as well. And some of them deserve to be because they're very good, but I'm kind of taking my place a bit more. And I feel different about this because I went to Haiti. And this was where everything shifted for me. So same thing, I was with the Auto Police, and the Auto Police at that time had a MOU with the RCMP and the UN. So for peacekeeping missions. So I applied in 2012 to go for a peacekeeping mission, actually in Congo at first. And then the Congo trip went through, they had to cancel it because it was too dangerous at certain points, so they couldn't send anybody anymore. So then I went to Haiti. They asked me, hey, Congo is canceled, but we have a mission in Haiti. Would you be interested? I said, of course. So I went to a 1-year secondment in Haiti, peacekeeping mission. So basically the Ottawa Police lent me to the RCMP and the RCMP lent me to the UN. So my uniform, I was essentially like an RCMP uniform with one shoulder flash of the RCMP, one shoulder flash of the Ottawa Police, and the UN beret. So I had all pieces on me from all the agencies. So I went to Haiti August 2012 to August 2013. And we were 42 candidates from Canada that went, and 5 of us were women, the rest were guys. And we landed in Haiti in August. It was so hot. And I was super pumped. I was like, okay, this is great. But I had the same kind of feeling. I was like, just so grateful that I got the position. I was like, I felt a bit uneasy. I felt like I got the position because they needed women, the token woman. Not a lot of women applied, things like that. And then for the first little bit of my mission, that maybe that's kind of what I exhumed a little bit as well. Not consciously, obviously, but you know, I was young and I had about 6 years of police experience at that time. Yeah, 6 years. So, you know, I just felt kind of green still, but super excited. So I go to Haiti. My mission in Haiti, so the mission in Haiti was a peacekeeping mission. We didn't have the executive powers, meaning that we weren't there to do the job for the Haitian National Police. We're there to mentor them and monitor them. And then give them advice, talk things out with them, but we couldn't do an arrest or get involved at all unless it was a life and death situation. If any life was in danger, then we were able to act, but other than that, no. So the first 2 weeks were training. We were in Port-au-Prince, which is the capital. And we're 2 weeks of training, a lot of cultural training, a bit of language classes. And actually, before I went to Haiti, I had also in Canada, I had 3 weeks of training. Same type of thing, language, culture, history, things like that. So we prepared use of force and how to stay safe and things like that. So go to Haiti and yeah, 2 weeks of training. There's a bunch of nations there. So, and Haiti was super interesting because there was actually 50 nations part of this mission. So a lot of countries in Africa. We have also Bangladesh, Spanish. There's 50, so I don't remember all of them, but a lot of nations. And so it was really cool. Part of our training was we did wear our own contingent. So I did my training with Canada, but there's some parts that we kind of mingled with other countries as well. So it was kind of cool to see other people. And also, in general, there's a lot more men than women, but I would say the numbers were probably about the same that there are in Canada. I think policing in Canada is about 23 to 25% are women, and the rest are men. So I would say about the same thing was in Haiti. Some countries had a bit more women. For example, Norway was essentially all women that they sent, very few men. Bangladesh actually was all women that they sent because they actually have a military section in Bangladesh that is only women. So they came. So that was pretty cool. So my experience there as a PW in Haiti was a little bit interesting. So I was a bit worried about this for a few reasons. A lot more men. I had this kind of in my head that culturally that maybe women wouldn't be accepted as much. And that, you know, with certain countries, in my head, I had that maybe some African countries would be a bit more challenging, that maybe they would, you know, because I knew that some police services in Africa don't even have women. So I was like, okay, how is that going to work? And those type of reservations I had. And I knew that in Haiti, they didn't have a lot of women police officers either. And culturally, you know, women's rights are maybe not as, I don't know how to say, not important, but they're not as recognized, or they're not as in Canada, or that's what my perception was before even going. So those were things that I was worried about. I was also worried about my sexual orientation, because knowing from, again, culturally, that maybe that's not necessarily accepted. Also being young in age and young in experience. Those were all concerns that I went in. So I tried to come in and be confident, but also not try to put on an ego, like just try to basically people watch a lot for the first little bit. So I just people watched. And I think that was my saving grace that really helped me to flourish, was right from the start, there was a bit of an attitude that, because we were told, like, Canadian officers, we are going to go and we're really well equipped, we're really well trained, and we're super knowledgeable, and we're basically the best. And I wasn't sure about that because I'm like, I might have all the equipment, I might have fancy uniform, and I may have a lot of training courses, but I've never policed in a place like Haiti that cops don't have radios, cops don't have computers, cops don't have cars, or if they have a car, they don't have gas to put in the car. And often they don't have a police station. So I was like, now I have all this training as a police officer, but I'm going in a situation that I've never been in. So I didn't feel too confident. I felt confident that I could take care of myself, but I didn't feel confident to work in that environment because I'd never done that before. But they're like, oh yeah, we're the best. So I just listened and watched the Haitian National Police do their job. And I was amazed how they could do their job. Like they could, how they could function with police stations that didn't have electricity. So then if someone came in, oh, and the police stations actually don't have doors. So anybody can barge in anytime. And there's no electricity. So if someone comes in, they go, hello, and then all of a sudden there's a little flashlight that pops up. And that was their thing. And I was like, I realized that I was a little bit afraid of the dark when I work in Haiti because it's always dark at night. Like we police in the dark. And I was like, oh, I think I'm a little scared of the dark. But I think that helped me to kind of, you know, build rapport with the Haitian National Police because those were all things they were dealing with. And they were kind of frustrated with international people coming in and telling them how to do their job and, you know, always kind of criticizing them. And I was like, I don't have anything to criticize because I don't even know, like, you're teaching me here because this is all new to me. So this was really good. And I'm glad that's kind of how I just decided to approach it and build rapport and do my job. I learned a tremendous amount of things on how to problem solve and how to be adaptable. That's where, because as police officers in our training, it's often, the nature of our job is that we have to control the situation because it can be very dynamic. So sometimes, you know, if someone is aggressive towards me, we're going to bring it one notch up to show that, okay, well, if you come your fist up at me, well, I'm going to have my fist up and maybe my pepper spray or my baton. So we're trying to make sure that things don't, well, that I don't get injured and nobody else gets injured, and that the situation is, you know, that I control the situation. So this was a bit different in Haiti where I was not really in control. And I was vigilant, but I was like, okay, the Haitian National Police are the ones that have been working in this environment for 5, 10 years or 15 years, however long they've been a police officer in this environment. So I better trust them. So we'd have some conversations about, okay, like scenarios, worst case scenarios, someone comes in the station with a weapon, like what do we do? Things like that. And at first, being a female police officer, I was a bit concerned how they would, you know, take some of my advice or suggestions or things like that when we were discussing back and forth. But they were so receptive. I think mostly because we just had really, we learned from each other. And I had a lot of comments where, oh, you're not like all the other police officers, Canadian police officers. Generally, actually, Canada had a really, really good reputation in Haiti. If there was ever a situation going on the street, as soon as they saw a Canadian uniform, they came to Canadian police officers. So that was a saving grace to start with. Um, and sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So I did this for 6 months. It was basically monitoring the patrol. I learned, like I said, a bunch of things about being adaptable, about communication, about just kind of putting your ego aside, and just a different way of doing policing. Like this was 100% all the time what I call verbal judo. It was how you could articulate and explain and relate to people, because it can be a dangerous situation. There were some times there that scared me, and my life did flash before my eyes. But those were just part of the situation. In some situations that could have been handled differently by other people. So I learned tremendous things. After 6 months, there was an opportunity to apply for a different position. Actually, about 5 months. So I applied for 2 positions, actually. One was a chief of department. So Haiti was divided in a bunch of different provinces, 9 little provinces. And I applied for the chief of department in Southeast Department, which is Jacmel's, right on the ocean. And super beautiful. Most places in Haiti are right on the ocean, but there are inland postings as well. So I applied for that position, and I applied for the coordinator's position. So the chief of department would be equal to a chief of police. And the coordinator would be the 2IC, so the second in charge of that, of the chief of police. So I applied to both, and I was really hoping to get the coordinator position. I was like, I don't think I would get the chief of department position, but I'll just put my name. It's part of the experience of applying. The whole time I've had to get myself out of my comfort zone. So I was like, okay, this is just the next step. So one morning I got a call that I got a position. And so I was like, oh, coordinator. And the person says, no, you're going to be the chief of department of Southeast Department. I was like, oh, I did not expect that. So all of a sudden I'm like, well, I don't know if I should have applied for that. So what are the first thoughts that came in my head? Of course, okay, at that time I was 33 years old. 33 years old, I'm a female, and I have 6 years on. I'm not a senior. So I was the first Canadian that was a non-rank officer. So most Canadians in the past, or any country actually, that had that chief of department position have been like a rank in their home service, or sergeant, staff sergeant, or an inspector, things like that. I was just a constable. I wasn't even a detective in my own home department. So I was like, okay, I'm the youngest police officer that's ever done this. I have no experience in terms of, like being a sergeant or a supervisor. And I felt immediately I'm the token PW doing this. So I had about 2 weeks to kind of pick up the pieces and get myself sorted out and go to my new department. So I was like, okay, I'm going to build some confidence here. I'm going to figure it out, talk to a bunch of other, actually there was one guy in my contingent as well, Canadian, that applied for chief of department also at the same time as me in another province, and he got it. So we spoke all the time. He was a 30-year veteran, had lots of experience. He was in his home service, Sûreté du Québec, actually. He was a homicide detective, a sergeant. So I called him every night just to, how do I lead people? So anyways, I get to 2 days before I go to Jacmel, I hear that I basically get a list of all the staff that is going to be under me. And there was 21 officers under me. I was going to be the boss of 21 people. 3 of them were Canadians. So I was like, yeah, okay, that's good. A couple Americans. And the rest were mostly from Benin, the Congo, Rwanda, African countries. So I was like, okay. And Romania and the States. So I was like, okay. And they're like, there's no woman. You're the only woman there. And you're the only woman that's been there for the last 10 months. I was like, oh, that's great. So I'm the only woman there, and I'm the chief of department. That's what can go wrong. That's fantastic. They're like, okay, but so I was the chief of department for the UN police. And then there is the military unit that was from Argentina. And then we had a Sri Lankan army as well on the base. But the head civilian of all those people was a female Canadian. And she had like 40 years of UN experience at leading. And we became actually really good friends. She was a great support for me. So I touched base with her before I went to Jacmel, and she kind of built my confidence, so I was ready to go. So I'm all pumped up. I go and do the 6-hour drive to Jacmel, get to Jacmel, and all the police officers that were going to be there were there to greet me. So they say hi, we shake hands. There was one in particular that this was an interesting experience. He shakes my hand. He said, welcome. He's like, just so you know, I'm going to make sure that Port-au-Prince, the head office, realizes they made a mistake hiring you instead of me. So I was like, oh, okay. And he says this with a really nice shiny smile and shake my hand and, you know, like put it as much pressure trying to break my hand, but I responded back by trying to squeeze his hand harder. I was a bit surprised by that. But that's how my start of my 6th month as a chief of department started. I was worried about some countries or officers from countries that didn't have police officers, female police officers in their home country. They weren't the problem. Anyways, it was this one particular that really challenged me through my entire 6 months. It was a challenge. He made sure to remind me that I was a woman every day. He made sure to remind me that in Canada, I was just a constable, and him in his home country, he was a captain or something like that. The interesting part about that is that I learned that in their country, police officers go to police academy, and they're the ones that do all the patrol work. But the officers, so the executive, they're just people that go to university, get a degree in how to be a police executive, and then they become executive. So this person had 0 police experience, 0 in any way. So it was interesting that he, you know, viewed me as less than him, but he did a really good job and was very effective at making sure that I knew where I stood. So this was a challenge. And looking back, I wish that I would have that challenge now, because I would act with that very differently. Back then, it really did take a toll. I was very excited and motivated for the first 5 months. I had lots of energy. So my role there as a chief of department on the UN side was to work with the chief of department on the Haitian National Police. So together, I had a great relationship with him. He was super progressive and very passionate about policing, and wanting to get policing better in Haiti. And I learned so much from him. Together, we were able to get projects done, and we were able to get 5 police stations built in rural sections that, you know, police officers before like weren't successful. But me and him together, we were the perfect team, and it went really well. And we were able to put a bunch of we basically had planned a bunch of town halls. So we went to 21 different little communes in the mountains, and basically had town halls with the community, talk about their expectations of the police, their concerns, their everything, and we documented everything, and we had a plan that we acted on, which was really nice. And I felt like I was contributing until about, so I was the chief of the department and there was a coordinator. The coordinator that was there ended up having to, his mission was done. So the position opened up. As a chief of department, I had decision to choose where officers went. So I placed officers where I believe they would be a better asset, where it made sense, except the coordinator. I could not select that person. That person got selected by the head office in Port-au-Prince. I fought really hard to keep the coordinator that I wanted, that was there already, wanting him to extend his mission, because he was really, really good. He was a American Haitian, and he was fantastic. He was super good, but the States wanted him back because he's such an asset in the country as well, in the States. So the coordinator position came up, and the person that got the job was the wonderful officer that greeted me on my first day and reminded me that he would make sure that Port-au-Prince knew that they made a mistake selecting him. I fought pretty hard against that. There was nothing I could do except documenting all there was a lot of performance issues and a lot of discipline issues in terms of completely breaking the law. But those type of complaints take a while to go through, to be processed. So anyway, he got the position, and what that meant is when I would go on holidays. So I worked in Haiti, we worked 24 every day, and then we accumulate days off, and then we can take them off. So after 2 months, I took some time off. By me leaving, then automatically the coordinator becomes the chief of department, and for the 2 weeks while I'm gone. So I had been working on some projects with the chief of the National Police, and anyways, I felt like, okay, this is what information was on the computer was the property of the UN. So he's the chief of department. So I didn't think of removing anything or hiding anything or things like that. I came back, and a lot of my projects that were well into completion had been submitted under his name when I came back. And actually before that, when I came back, I come back after 2 weeks, and the professional standards from Port-au-Prince are in check now. And I guess when I left, there was basically a fist fight between him and another officer. The officer was from Africa, and the coordinator was not racial, visual minority, and said some very, very degrading comments to this officer from Africa, and a fight ensued and a complaint ensued, and ended up that there was a complaint made. So they came to investigate and talk to everybody. I guess there was a lot of stuff happening that I was not aware of. So from that moment on, really my position was managing him. It became, there was complaints every day. And we were being interviewed by professional standards on multiple times a week because of complaints coming from his behaviors as a police officer and in the public as well. It became a nightmare. And as a PW, that he reminded me often, I was sometimes at a bit of a loss and not sure exactly what to do. So it was an interesting time, and I felt that it really took away from my experience and what I actually contribute to the mission and to what our goal was there. So 31 counter complaints against me after 31 complaints against me from him, which all were deemed not substantiated, and he ended up getting sent home in the end. But he only got sent home 5 days after my mission was done, which is too bad. But from that, I learned a lot. And one of the things, that's kind of where I stopped seeing myself as a token woman and just being grateful that, oh, okay, thank God that they had to take a token woman, and actually look at myself as, I have a lot to contribute. And if I act like I do, then I will. Some of his behaviors could have been stopped a bit earlier if I kind of shed that mentality and things like that. And I feel as a woman sometimes, especially in a man-dominated world, is sometimes we do feel like we're the token woman, and we, because of that, we don't do things as we would normally. So I wish, or I hope that I would have an experience to do that again. But the experience itself in Haiti from the Haitian people, the population, was amazing. I built some really amazing relationships and friendships, forged some friendships and relationships that I still maintain now, 7-8 years later. And I was really well received. And actually, this was a pretty fun story. So there was one police officer that worked under me in Jacmel. He was from, I'm trying to think, the Congo. No, not the Congo. It'll come to me. Burkina Faso. He was from Burkina Faso. And he was also a chief, like a hereditary chief in his tribe back in Africa. And he was a chief of police. He had been a police officer for 35 years. And in his police service, there was no woman. And I was a bit worried about a police officer like that because he had so much experience. And now his superior was a female police officer. And he was so supportive and encouraging. He's like, I like this. And he's like, well, at first he was like, it doesn't matter in my country, it doesn't matter who is in the position, we just have to respect. So we don't challenge, we just accept and we trust and we do what needs to be done, because rank is really important. And I had a rank of chief at that time. But over the months, he realized, he's like, oh, you're actually pretty, you know what you're doing. I like your way you're doing things. He went on a holiday back to his home country. And when he came back, he told his daughters, his adult daughters, that his chief in Haiti was a female. And they were so pleased. They wrote me letters of how to make sure that I kept their dad in line. They sent me gifts, all these type of things. And then they gave me their emails. They wanted to chat with me. They couldn't believe that a female police officer was their dad's boss. And that was pretty fun. So there's a few stories like that was empowering and gave me confidence. But there was also some that kind of made me stronger and learned some lessons. So all in all, when I first came back from Haiti, actually, it was really hard because the last few months were very hard. And it was a constant struggle because I couldn't actually do the work that I wanted to do because I had to monitor and to deal with putting fires from a person that was so bent on making sure a woman was not recognized for the work that she was doing. And that was really hard. So when I came back, I was not I didn't have a lot of good comments to say about my mission. I would say good things, but it was really hard and it was a bad experience. And I came back and people were like, "Oh, you should apply to be a sergeant at the police service." And I was like, "No way! I'm never going to be a supervisor ever again." Now I've had a bit of a change of heart, but still, you know, being a police woman, the PWs definitely had. The definition or what the meaning of it has changed for me over the time. But, and like I said earlier, if I would, you know, had done this book 7, 8 years ago, it would be very different from now. I'd probably be like, "Oh, I'm a token woman," or without that language, very much kind of say that. And now it's like, I think our police services in Canada would be better if there'd be more women. Not that men are not good. We need men, but we need a balance because women police very differently than some men. And some of our skills are very different. You know, when people ask about that, I say, okay, think about a hockey team. If you want a really good hockey team, I use hockey because we're in Canada, but any team, are you going to have, you know, all defensemen or all goaltenders or all forwards? No, you need people that are, you know, good forwards, good centers, good at face-offs, all kinds of skills and different skills to be able to have a really good team or have an all-star team. So that's exactly what I think about police officers. You need your PWs, you need your visual minorities, you need white guys, you need everybody. But you need a balance. You need diversity, and because they all bring experience and baggage with them that affects and influences how they do work, which in different circumstances is exactly what you need. So, anyways, I realized the time. I don't know if anybody has any questions or if there's any specific thing that you're curious about what I've said so far, or any comments or anything like that. Because I can keep talking forever. My partner is loving this break, that I could just have another audience to talk.
Nick, somebody has asked in the chat, well, first of all, they've said, "What an amazing life story. Later in life, I've often wished I'd become a police officer, but I figured I was too short. May I ask how tall you are? And where did you train as a police officer?"
So I'm 5'4.5", and the half is very important. But there's police officers that are 5 feet, nothing, you know, like, I often thought that it was all size, but really skills is, so just being able to rapport, able to relate to people. All of a sudden, you don't need to be tall, and you don't need to be big, and you don't need to be, you know, all strong. You do need to be able to defend yourself, because sometimes, pardon my language, but shit hits the fan and you need to act. So you need to be able to do that. But in use of force, that's what we call use of force. That's how we learn to ground fight and firearms training and all that. That's, you know, for me, I'm kind of like a technique specialist at that, because I can't rely on my strength and I can't rely on my weight, because a 6'5" guy, yeah, he can muscle me around, but if I want to control him, I need to be able to use technique, and then we do training for that. I did my training as a police officer with the Edmonton Police. So at that time, I joined with the Camrose Police, but we don't have our own police academy. So Edmonton Police or Calgary Police save spots for us for the recruits. And at that time, the time I went was with Edmonton. And then I see another question: was I ever sexually harassed in Haiti? You know, there's always comments, and that's not just in Haiti. You know, when I was patrolling, I'm not on patrol anymore in Ottawa, but when I was on patrol, the comments, you know, from the public, getting catcalled, all the time, being hit on. And, you know, police culture is a bit of a reflection of society. So if that happens in society, it happens in policing a little bit. I think police services are doing a whole lot of work around workplace harassment. So I'm happy to say that I've been lucky in that way, that, you know, I haven't been too harassed. I don't know if it's because they get it. Like I have a wife, like I'm not into guys, like maybe that has something to do with it, but I don't know. But yeah, not so much in Haiti. Yeah. And then, have I ever thought about writing a book? Funny you ask. I do want to write a book one day. I don't know about policing. I think it's just life in general. But yeah, I always, I have this like list of things I want to accomplish in my life. And so there's master's and PhD, and then there's maybe writing a book. There's a bunch of expeditions and things I want to do. There's a whole lot of things I want to do outside of policing as well. So the book's on there. We'll see if it happens. And sorry, I'm just reading as I the comments. Thank you. Is there more respect for PWs in Canadian culture? I would say no, because of this. I think it's changing, but PW, like this was a term, I didn't hear this term in Camrose. I think it was too small. They just didn't have that term, or they didn't, I don't know. But when I came to Ottawa, it was PWs, and PW is associated with like weakness. It's like I said earlier, it's a police woman. If they're not, haven't proven themselves as a police officer, you're a PW. Or if an officer like kind of does something kind of funny, or gets into a car crash with their police cruiser, which sometimes we like, unless someone gets hurt, but it's like, haha, you crashed your car, you hit a pole. If a woman does that, oh, you hear the police woman, she backed into a pole. Well, the amount of pole hitting I've seen by male police officers outnumbers. Actually, I've never seen a police woman, a female police officer hit a pole, but I've seen many police officers hit poles. But it only, you know, then it's a police woman. Then it's a big deal. And also, I mean, there were so many experiences in Haiti, and the chief of department position, at first, I was excited. There was 3 Canadians and there was a couple of Americans there. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna be supported. And we're gonna be more like-minded. Although one of the Canadians is actually a really good friend of mine that was on mission. The Canadians were the hardest to deal with, because in Canada, we basically are of the mind that we can speak our mind, which I appreciate, that we can freely speak our mind, tell what's on our minds. But I felt like they were really trying to tell me how to do my job, and other countries were just letting me do my job. So whether they didn't agree with my decision or whatever, you know, my discussions with them appeared frank. And I listened to them, they listened to me. But from the Canadians, I really got the sense of, and French too, actually, that really, well, you should do, telling me how I should do my job. And from other, which what I explain, I call mansplaining. They're mansplaining everything, but from other countries, I did not get that at all. There was, I think it's a bit more of they respect rank, and at that time I held the rank of chief, so they respected that, and so it was really good. Sorry, I'm reading more messages here. Thank you so much for the messages. I think this is awesome. I didn't know
people are allowed to speak as well if you want.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of police culture is changing. Like I said, police is very much a reflection of society, right? And women are still marginalized. We're still vulnerable in terms of access to services, crimes against persons. A lot of crimes against persons are against women. So it's definitely a mirror, right? Because the police members are people from society, so we mirror those. So there's a lot of issues there. Most police services, well, the police services I've been part of are really trying to fix those cultural issues and the police culture, the old boys club that we call, trying to get rid of that, because it really does not, it does a disservice to the service and a disservice to the community that we serve. And for example, I mean, it's no secret, unfortunately right now, the Ottawa police, we've been in the paper every 2 to 3 days because of just cultural issues within the police that are coming to the surface now, and need to be, we need to kind of fix and clean. And it's not easy, and it's hard to be a police officer when those things come out, because it's very few. Most police officers I know, and I'm very happy to say that all the police officers I work, especially in my section now, are all really good people and want to be police officers to help people. But there's always a few that have to screw up and mess up everything and then kind of give us a bad rep or rap. Same thing goes with the treatment of female police officers, I think. For the most part, my colleagues that I've had here at the Ottawa Police and the Cameras Police as well have been, they treat me like a PO, a police officer, but there's a few that definitely need to make sure that the people are aware that there's a difference between police officers and PWs. The only difference that I can see is that performance is usually way better in PWs, but that's just my opinion. Actually, there's really good police officers as well. Yeah. Well, thank you for all the messages. I don't know if there's any other questions, any other, anything else.
Yeah, I was just going to say we're getting close to the hour, so
Yeah.
we probably will wrap it up. And thank you very much for that. I actually had the privilege of doing some ride-alongs with you, and always had fun doing that. She might be small, but she is more than well enough capable to take care of herself, and is excellent at her job, as you can tell by her comments today. Also very committed, and she's smart with how she approaches her work. So, and she just got into a second master's degree program. I hope that wasn't a secret. Oops.
No, it's not a secret.
So no shortage of energy and desire to work hard. So we're very thankful that you shared your story with us today, and you're most certainly providing great leadership to young women and men on what it means to be a police officer. And hopefully that's all that we are in a few years, is just, if you have to shorten it to police to PO, fine, but that there's no extra PW needed. It's not needed now. But
yeah, and with the PW, there's also, unfortunately, a police officer is a police officer until they're not white. Then they're not just a police officer, right? A PW and then a black police officer, or it's not just a PO.
Yeah.
So if and that's changing, but that's something that is also something that needs to be highlighted and be made aware, and it's an issue. But yeah,
very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you everybody for being here today, and thank you for speaking.
Thank you.